My name is Tim and I am the co-director of empowerment programs. Darlene, go.
Okay. Well, are you gonna introduce our speakers next? This is what pre-recorded statements give us.
I'm really excited to introduce our panel today. First is Alvar, who is one of us. He is an AAC user and a self-advocate and currently been working at a non-profit as a research and data analyst, and graduated during the pandemic with a master's in library and information science. He is most passionate about advocating and educating via the written word and finds purpose in leveraging his artistic abilities, education, lived experience, and technical skills to help ensure that all disabled people are afforded both agency and support. Alvar also been in our Emerging Leaders program and the Self-Advocate Speakers Bureau, and there is no doubt in my mind that he will be a future leader. Second, I would like to introduce you to Frink. Tal has been working at teacher-created resources for 35 years. He started off working in the warehouse while getting his degree elementary physical education from Cal State Long Beach and has been a human resources manager for the past 25 years. Tal and his wife has been married for 35 years and a proud grandpa of 4 grandchildren. I've known Tal for almost 20 years now because I used to work at the same company with him, and whenever I needed accommodation, I would ask him and my supervisors on how to perform my job better. And there were many write-ups in my files for always going too fast in the office, and especially out in the parking lot, by the loading docks, and there were many close calls of me and semi-trucks. Alvar and Tal, thank you for joining our session today.
Yes, thank you both. All right, we are going to get started with you, Alvar, I think. So I want you first off to tell us a little bit about yourself that Tim hasn't already told us.
My name is Alvar. My pronouns are he, him, and I am an autistic and physically disabled self-advocate and AAC user. A brief physical description is that I am a 30-something-year-old man with light skin and brown hair, including a burst fade haircut and mustache. I also have a spiked circular barbell in my septum and am wearing headphones and a black shirt. The past 2 years I have worked at a non-profit as a research and data analyst after graduating during the pandemic with a master's in library and information science.
Excellent. Wow. The big question here at DVU has been, what does Alvar do? So thank you for answering that. Well, now we all know, and it's recorded. So thank you. You don't know how many times we've had this conversation. All right, well, welcome. So let's get started with the beginning of this process. And I wanted to know, we wanted to know a little bit about what was the interview process like for you, Alvar?
A bit of background is that I have always struggled with interviews to the point that I was not hired in the past after interviews, despite employers finding my resume, skills test results, and written responses to be excellent. Due to my history of horrible interviews, the interview process is extremely stressful for me. Before my current job, I worked part-time as a support specialist with marginalized young people experiencing homelessness. The interviewers were both social workers and actually already had an autistic employee, so they were accommodated. It was the first time I felt I had a chance and did well in an interview. Since my current position is also in social services, I was hopeful that the process would be positive, but I still had a lot of anxiety. The mentor I was assigned as a support specialist set up a meeting ahead of time with the hiring manager for my current position so that she could explain the job description and interview process to me. Once I decided that I wanted to apply, my mentor also helped me prepare by setting up a couple practice interviews with friends of hers that work at non-profits, as well as by providing feedback on my cover letter and resume herself. There were 3 rounds in the interview process. The first round involved filling out the job application online and submitting a cover letter and resume. Those who met the initial qualifications went to the second round, which involved written responses to a handful of interview questions as a test of applicants' written communication skills. After the first 2 rounds, the top 6 candidates moved on to the third phase, which involved a panel interview via Zoom and a skills assessment. For the panel interview, I prepared an introduction and responses to common interview questions ahead of time, as well as a few questions to ask the panel, since my mentor explained that most interviews end with an invitation for the candidates to ask questions of their own, since it is important for the prospective employee to be able to make sure it is a good fit for them too. My mentor also reminded me in our preparation that it was okay to ask for the questions to be typed into the chat to avoid auditory processing issues impeding my ability to answer completely and correctly, that it was okay for me to take my time to reply rather than worrying about the interviewers becoming annoyed or impatient due to the time it takes me to think and type. After the Zoom interview, I was given 24 hours to complete the skills assessment, which involved analyzing and creating a dashboard for a large set of fake data to evaluate my technical skills. The whole process took 2 weeks, with my now manager calling me at the end of the second week to let me know I was chosen for the position.
Wow. Very good. That was great information. Very good. Thank you. So now, so you got the position, obviously. What kind of accommodations do you use at work?
In regard to accommodations for the panel interview, in addition to being able to read the interview questions and have extra time to think and type, as I previously noted, I will say that the interview being by Zoom, since it took place during the height of the pandemic, likely benefited me, because one of the most common negative comments I have received in prior interviews is that my lack of eye contact is concerning to the interviewers. So if I had an in-person interview, I would have needed to explain ahead of time that my lack of eye contact is due to autism and should not be counted against them. In regard to accommodations for my job, the fact that I was hired and began working when everyone was still sheltering in place due to the pandemic reduced the initial accommodations I required. All staff not involved in direct service work virtually, which allowed me to accommodate myself and better control my environment. Recently, more staff have been returning to the office, but thankfully, I am officially a remote worker. So, except for occasional in-person meetings or training, I can continue to work virtually from my apartment. Working remotely allows me to accommodate myself by adjusting the environment to meet my sensory needs. For example, comfortable clothing, music or quiet, and non-fluorescent lighting. It also means that a majority of the synchronous meetings I attend are still on Microsoft Teams or Zoom. Both platforms allow me to communicate via the chat in addition to, or instead of using my AAC device, which is helpful because my work computer sometimes struggles to pick up my AAC device's audio. Microsoft Teams and Zoom also usually offer automatic captioning to help mitigate my auditory processing issues. Another helpful factor is that I am an exempt employee, which allows me more flexibility in scheduling my breaks and work hours. I am required to be available for any teams that meet with me during the regular business day, but otherwise I can adjust my schedule if needed when working asynchronously, which allows me to take a longer break if I am feeling particularly poorly, or I can overall shift my schedule later in the day, which is easier for me considering my circadian rhythm is atypical and I experience a lot of morning pain, stiffness.
Wow. But again, great. I think about how people have talked about how Zoom being in place and then taken away for so many settings, but I mean, you just shed light on even more about what the being home allows you to do your own accommodations. Actually, it's easier for the employer, right? They don't have to worry about making your accommodations. You can make them yourselves in your own space. I think Tim's typing. Are you typing, Tim? Okay, 1 second.
Alvar, you bring up an excellent point. I also work remotely and exempt at working regular hours. Do you think that the pandemic has benefited you in finding a career that you want to be because we all had to work remotely for the past 3 years?
I think there has definitely been benefits to the majority-able population suddenly requiring accommodations due to the pandemic. As Darlene mentioned, it is frustrating to watch many of those accommodations and options disappear now that many healthy people are no longer concerned with COVID. My current job would have been in person at an office some distance from my apartment prior to the pandemic, so being able to work remotely made it possible for me to work where I do.
Yeah. Yep. So if, Alvar, do you have like 3 tips for AAC users to have to share about setting up your employment? Like once you get the job, what are 3 tips to give someone going into this job who's an AAC user?
My first tip is actually about looking for employment. When looking for jobs, remember that you are interviewing employers while they are interviewing you. In the past, I accepted employment and stayed in situations where I was not correctly treated or properly valued for my experience and skills, because I felt lucky to find employers who would hire and retain me as a disabled person. If you are encountering barriers and discrimination when applying or interviewing for a position, it makes sense to attempt educating the employer if it is a position you are excited about. But if they are unwilling to accommodate you, it is advisable to look elsewhere. I have found that even if I love the work associated with a job, unaccommodating clients, co-workers, and/or management will make it unsustainable for me, often sooner than later. Affording food, rent, and other basic necessities is extremely important, so I do not mean to trivialize that struggle, as it's a huge stress for me as well, but I encourage you to look for employment where your gifts will be celebrated rather than merely tolerated and your needs as an AA. An AAC user will be gladly met. During your employment, it is likely you will encounter individuals who have never interacted with an AAC user or who may have inaccurate assumptions about you because you use AAC. So my second tip is that even if your manager and immediate co-workers are knowledgeable or supportive and willing to be educated, it is important to discuss ahead of time how your AAC use will be addressed with others. The best explanation or response will likely vary depending on the circumstances, so consider how your AAC use will be addressed with different audiences, for example, those you will work with frequently, those you will work with occasionally, those you will likely only encounter once, different familiarity levels with AAC, for example, those closely connected or related to an AAC user, those who have heard of AAC but don't know much about it, and those who know nothing about AAC, and different reactions, for example, those who respond to your AAC use with anger or impatience, those who respond to your AAC use with confusion, but it seems they want to be supportive, and those who respond to your ACUs in a way that indicates they are knowledgeable and supportive. After taking some time to consider the above variables, make sure to create a concrete plan ahead of time to outline how any needed education, co-workers and clients will be handled, as well as how any issues will be addressed. That is, in what situations, if any, do you want to advocate for yourself? And in what situations, if any, would you prefer that one of your co-workers or your manager advocate for you instead?
Like that.
My third and final tip is that it is best to review your job description and daily duties before your first day in order to determine if there are likely to be any situations or tasks that would make using your usual AC device more challenging, so that you can explore accessories, accommodations, or using a different modality when needed before you encounter the difficult circumstances. A related tip is to plan ahead of time for AC use in emergency situations, including both work emergencies that you will be responsible for responding to as an employee, and personal emergencies, so that you can let your employer know how to best help and support you in a crisis.
That's great. I love that. Like, it's very important. How are we going to support you in a crisis? That's for sure. I don't know that everybody thinks about that stuff, but that's really important. Excellent. So as you've been employed, maybe even in school, but how were your accommodations challenged? Did anyone challenge any of them and say, oh, that?
When I first started my current job, my ability to use the chat on Zoom was challenged, mainly by those with a business rather than social services background and role. I have also been reprimanded by those same folks for supposedly not paying attention when typing to communicate, either using my AC device or the chat. A combination of educating those who had never encountered an AAC user but were willing to learn, and my manager advocating for me with those who were unwilling to accommodate me even after I explained and offered resources, helped address those issues. As my physical disabilities have progressed, physically typing is becoming more and more difficult for me, to the point that by the end of the workday it is generally impossible for me to type with anything other than my thumbs, which are usually the last to freeze up. To address the advancement of my disability, I requested an assistive technology assessment. I was told I had to undergo an ergonomic assessment first, as that was what was typically offered. The ergonomic assessment took place earlier this month, and the individual responsible for that assessment suggested a couple small tweaks, while also agreeing I should be referred out for an assistive technology assessment considering my specific needs. After requesting an update last week, I was told that an assistive technology assessment may not be something the company could provide, so I am currently trying to figure out how I can access the assessment of the accommodations I need.
The old, we have a better idea first that we'd like to try. Right? Everybody always meets you guys with that. Interesting. So what do you wish that you had talked about prior to starting your employment with your employer? Is there anything that you think, gosh, I should have mentioned that?
The main things I wish I had talked about prior to starting my employment are reflected in my second and third tips for AAC users and conversations to have before they start. As I'm now struggling to access an assistive technology assessment in order to find ways to accommodate my advancing disability, I also wish I would have initially spoken with my employer as well as the Department of Rehabilitation before my services were discontinued due to successfully securing employment to solidify a plan for meeting any additional needs that could arise in the future.
That's a great one. I'm writing that one down for everybody. Keep DOR open once you get your job, right? You may have needs. Yeah, that's a good one. I'm sure they like to say, we're done now, right? Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you, Alvar. That's awesome. I think we're going to go to Tal, and then if people are asking questions, we'll open it up to a full conversation. Is that all right, gentlemen? All right, thanks. Tal, let's see. Now we're going to hear from the employer. So tell us about yourself, first of all, Tal.
Well, my name is Tal Frink. I've been working at Teacher Created Resources for past 35 years, about 20, 25 years in the HR capacity. I've kind of grown up here, really, and I've seen a lot of people come and go. And Tim is one of the ones that, you remember. He's like a teacher, and you remember that kid from 5th grade. You're a lot older, and they come back. He's just a memorable guy, and I've enjoyed our years together. And unfortunately, that pandemic really, did a number on, employers and employees.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's been quite the ride, and I just think I think Alvar did a great job of explaining a lot of even the employer side. It seemed like he had a good insight of everything going on. It's going to be different anywhere you go. People are different, jobs are different, and I think it's you just gotta kind of do your best with what you have, and find the things that work for you and the people that work with you.
What kind of background or training or information were you ever provided with is when you took on this position in 0? Okay. So how did you pick it out?
It was a trial by fire type of thing, and I remember when Tim first came on with us, his AAC was a lot different, and so it was much slower, and it was just not clear. And I remember how excited he was when he was getting his new one, and what a difference that made. And it was pretty cool. But yeah, no, there wasn't a whole lot of training. Way back in the beginning, when one of the employers, one of our owners, her brother worked at Fountain Valley High School. Yeah, and I'm not sure if it was the Project Independence thing or if it was specific to Fountain Valley. He had there was a connection there to get people in through the program, and it really kind of opened up our eyes to what people with disabilities are capable of doing, and how a lot of them just it's just you just find a niche, or you find something for them to do. We're an educational publishing company, so it kind of fell into place that was, it was something that you kind of, just like when teachers are teaching, you find out what kids' capabilities are, and you work with those, and you challenge them, and they challenge you right back. So it's a two-way street, and I think it's fantastic that programs like this are growing.
What kind of accommodations did you see that you had to either make that you maybe didn't anticipate, or you had to share with other staff, be mindful of these things?
Yeah, I think patience is probably a good part of it, and just being kind, and that you're not going to get the kind of responses with an AAC that you would with another person just normally. So you got to be patient, and you got to just wait for the answer that you want. And I think a lot of people that don't have any experience with that, it could probably, impatient people, you're just going to come across them, and it's going to be tough for them. So therefore, like Alvar said, you gotta kind of do your due diligence and find a place where they're willing to work with you. And because as Tim's shown us, that it's pretty amazing once you do have somebody in working amongst everyone else, and quite capable and beyond.
Yeah.
Tom, we go way back. I wore the only suit that I had at my first interview. When you first meet me, did you have any inside meetings with my managers at the time on how to accommodate to my situation? Or was it trial by error? I calling the bus for me when it was always late, and having an emergency plan?
Yes, that was always a lot of fun. And thank God we had suit front that general. She got that number down easy, and it was just like to her. She knew if you were sitting out there longer than she thought, she was already down, I think, before you even got to her. So yeah, there were certain things that you kind of just work around, and that's obviously that come up. You can't really plan for everything, but and you great job in that, Tim. And I think anybody going into a place of business, you got to kind of show all your cards and tell them what you need. Just explain to them what is going to be needed. And you did a great job of typing out what you needed in case of an emergency. So I always kept that on file, and I had that near to me, so I knew, and I had backup. And you kind of have to do that. If only one person knows it, that's kind of dangerous if something comes up. So having backup is a good idea too.
That's great. Yeah. What was there any accommodations that Tim or anybody else that you've had work for you gave on the list, and you kind of go, ooh, I don't know how we're going to do that one?
Yeah. One of the things we didn't expect, I mean, there was things like space, and like Tim said, he was a mover, so you kind of needed to let people know and let Tim know that you can't have that chair going high speeds in the office. Yeah, or outside. Some of the places were a little better, but if there were any corners, we had big trucks coming in, and Tim, I wanted to put a nice helmet with a light people Either that or, a really tall flag on the back that they could see him coming, because a lot of the trucks would come and he'd be so low that and going so fast that I think he scared a few of them. Probably more than him.
Well, I don't think Tim generalized that request.
Right.
I think maybe he got it for the context of your place.
Yeah.
But else.
Yeah. We always needed to keep a lot of spackle on hand too, because Tim cut corners. Yeah, so corners of our building that you could tell where Tim had been and where he was going.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot to ask Tim. Okay, so do you have 3 tips to our participants on preparing for an interview? We talked about Alvar's experience, but as an employer, what would you suggest?
Right. Yeah, Alvar did a great job of kind of explaining that on both sides. But I think, I think one of the things he hit on was eye contact. It's super important, and I think it's for anybody and everybody that's interviewing. You want to, you know what? I always kind of preempt my interview process with that. Interviews are like public speaking is probably right up in the top. I don't want to do's in your life, because it's not easy. It's nerve wracking. You kind of got to get in the mindset that, it's probably just as nerve wracking on the other side, trying to figure things out. And if somebody is going to work for your company and be a good addition, and you don't want to kind of just add somebody just to add somebody. You want to find the right people, and I think being yourself is huge. You want to be open and let them know that this is who I am. This is some of the things I need, but if you work with me, I'll work with you, type of thing. And I think third, ask a lot of questions. Definitely, you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. Don't be afraid to ask some questions, and don't be afraid to call back afterwards if you have a question. Because I know a lot of times you go, I even do it. When I'm interviewing somebody, I'm like, oh, I wish I would have asked that question. But call back. I'm always open, and I think a lot of places are open when you have a question after the fact. Give them a call and ask that question just to get it. Don't leave anything on the table. Really just kind of as much as you can get your point across and be open with them.
Excellent. And what about that first day on the job? What kind of tips would you have for preparing your employer? Like you as the employer, what was helpful to you to know and understand for that first day?
Well, I mean, first days are always interesting because you're trying to, I think, getting to know the person first day, walking in and just getting to know somebody, trying to find out you want to feel as welcome as possible. I know people, anywhere you go, you want to get that warm fuzzy that you're where you want to be and where they want you to be. So I think it's important, and first impressions go a long way. So make a good impression and just be yourself. But I think just being yourself is a big deal. And but it always takes time to get to know somebody. Don't uh, don't let yourself or sell yourself short. Maybe, you met somebody one time and it didn't feel like a warm fuzzy, go back and strike up another conversation. Tim was always super good with conversations and with just about anybody, and I think that's a really big deal. And people aren't comfortable. I was telling Tim, this isn't my comfort zone, doing this, but since he asked, I thought I'd out. I'm sure there was a lot of other people he probably had on the list first. Well,
You were number one.
Tom, this is off the record. You have worked with many people. Do you think that the people that you have worked with some kind of disability is most dedicated to the job than the average Joe?
absolutely. I've always said that all my best, anybody that I have that has a disability is spot on, there on time, doing their job. Very important that they do the job right. I probably have the least amount of issues with people with disabilities, and they are always doing the best. I tell you, I mean, we've had a few come through here, and it's impressive.
Excellent. Well, thank you both for your comments and information here. I'm going to open this up to questions in the audience here. William put a question in there for you, Alvar, that you can work on, and he's asking, what was the DOR process like for you? How did they help you? So I'll let you get work. Oh, Alvar, do you like people to wait while you type, or do you like people to move on while you type? Either way is totally fine with us. We have both people like both ways. I forgot to ask that ahead of time.
I actually got the question early, so I can answer it now.
Perfect.
I was a Department of Rehabilitation client before my services were discontinued after I secured my current job, and they helped me with my education as well as somewhat with finding employment. I am very thankful for the DOR's assistance, but I also encountered several unnecessary barriers. In mentioning a few of the barriers, I do not mean to discourage anyone from reaching out to the DOR for assistance, but I feel it is important for me to be transparent in the hope that it will inspire systems change as well as encourage clients to advocate for themselves or ask for help in advocating for themselves if encountering difficulties. In regard to my education, I received financial support to cover tuition, required books and supplies, as well as monthly checks to help with the cost of public transportation for any in-person rather than virtual courses. I also applied for and earned scholarships to help with my education expenses and worked part-time up to 15 hours a week to help with other life expenses when not busy with classes, so mainly during breaks or during the year between graduating with my bachelor's and starting my master's. One of the barriers I experienced was my DOR case manager objecting to the master's degree I wanted to pursue. She said that the field of library and information science was dead, and I was unlikely to find a job that utilized the degree after graduation. In order for the DOR to cover my master's expenses, I had to get degree approval, so I had to fill out a form to prove there were viable employment options for MLIS graduates. The form required a lot of research as well as 3 in-person interviews of currently employed individuals with an MLIS degree. I submitted the finished report to my case manager's supervisor for approval, and it was thankfully granted. Another barrier I experienced was my DOR case manager refusing to approve a month-long summer study abroad opportunity. She did not think I was capable of studying in the UK despite the program's willingness to accommodate me. Since my degree program offered an alternative to meet the requirement fulfilled by studying abroad, her refusal was final and I was not able to appeal. My case manager also initially refused to approve my internship assignment. Since an internship was required for graduation, I was able to appeal and get approval. Ableism can often be found even in the services meant to support disabled people, so it is important to be aware of that and to figure out how to advocate for yourself or appeal to get your needs met. If you are facing barriers, know that you can ask for help, whether from other DOR staff, a fellow self-advocate, or an organization that supports self-advocates. In regard to finding employment, my DOR agreement promised that upon graduation, they would provide me with cover letter and resume support, interview clothing, preparation and transportation, as well as a few other specific supports. Due to graduating and seeking employment during the height of the pandemic, I did not receive most of the promised supports, but I still wanted to mention them so that anyone who is a current or prospective DOR client knows to ask about them. Thankfully, I had asked for a mentor at my part-time job, and my mentor was happy to support me in searching for a full-time position. She also helped by giving me advice for the application process and setting up interview practice opportunities with a few of her friends who work at non-profits similar to where I now work.
Oh. Yeah, so write those barriers down, Nina. Nina
You
keeps
bet
track of this.
Can I ask a question? That was,
Yeah.
that was such a great, I had no idea on some of those details of DOR potential support. I mean, that's like amazing. And also this whole thing, I've been completely riveted on both these from the, you know, employee employer perspective. This is so great. So here's one. This is a question, you know, from both of these different perspectives. On the employer side, Tal, I'm just, does your organization, or do you as like in HR, do you provide help for your employees with disabilities when they have benefits issues, like questions that come up on their benefits and, you know, just some of the stuff that they may face? I realize that many may be, you know, regional center and DOR clients, but as you know, there are limits to how much help you may or may not ever get from them. So curious about that. And then I'm for Alvar, I'm just interested to know whether benefits, like how you deal with issues that come up around impact of employment on benefits. This is something that consumes us all. You know, we think about this all the time. So in any order, Tal, if you want to go first, but again, can I just say, this is so great. Thank you. Go ahead.
Well,
Thanks. Go, Tal.
I think I've only had one person with disabilities that has been on my our regular insurance and benefits. Unfortunately, you know, a lot of the other, you know, departments won't allow them to participate in that if they have other help. So it seems kind of limiting. for them. Uh, like I have our 401k plan. One of our gals, she can't participate in it because Social Security won't let her. There's limitations, unfortunately, in there that make it impossible for them to participate because I guess the government sees it as they're already getting benefits from them. So they restrict you on a lot of the stuff. So but I do have an individual that he is fully engulfed in all of the benefits that we offer. So I guess he's more independent that way. But yeah, it would be nice to be able to accommodate with certain things without the restrictions of government help. But then again, you kind of see it from the other side also.
Now, how did you find out about this as an employer? Was it because your employees told you, hey, I have a different way of doing my finances, or did you investigate and learn on your own?
Yeah, or that I was curious as to why they weren't participating in like a 401k plan because it really benefits and the company matches and you don't want to miss out on that. And that kind of brought it up to their attention that they found got either their parents or their coaches advice that it wasn't an option.
Okay. And Alvar, we'll wait for you.
I actually recently got a letter in the mail that I am losing my medical and other benefits due to my employment. Theoretically, that is fine because I have employer insurance and pay now. But considering my current struggles in getting accommodations, I am stressed about having to reapply for those services if I cannot work. One great resource I would like to suggest to folks is a savings account for people with disabilities that does not affect benefits. I can find the link and add it to the chat in a bit.
Yes, that's
Yes,
great.
if you mean CalAble? Yes, that is a really great resource. Thank you both so much.
So what you're saying, Alvar, is that you received the letter from Social Security saying you will no longer qualify for Medi-Cal because of your employment salary or wages that you're earning, and that your employer does offer insurance for you. Is that true? Okay, good. All right. Want to make sure of that. Okay, excellent. Is there, Lorna or Ernest, is there a question in the Spanish translation?
Oh,
Okay, all right, thanks. Okay, Mackay, am I saying that right, Mackay? I'm gonna have, are you able to unmute yourself? There you go.
Yes, Nikai, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Thank you so much, Elva, for your guidance, your experience. I wanted just as the systems change advocate at CIL in Berkeley. I want to let people know that when there are barriers that they may be experiencing in employment or with DR, they could reach out to their local independent living center and ask for assistance change. Advocate, we do advocacy with clients and also research information.
Okay, stop for 1 second. Can you stop? Well, I'm going to catch up with you and just revoice for a second. What was the name of the, you're saying that there is an organization that you can reach out to?
Center for Independent Living Center.
Okay,
I'm with the Center for Independent Living in Berkeley, California. But there may be a person there called the Systems Change Advocate. And what we do is pretty much look to remove systemic or big difficulties dealing with agencies and organizations, so we can help advocate with clients. I also want to mention I myself am DR client, and it's a very valuable program. And agents, however, I'm not surprised hearing from Alvar difficulties relating to different parts of employment, education, when advanced with higher education opportunities. And this is a systemic issue. I look to another advocate, look to working with DRR to change in the future. And that was pretty much it. So yes, so I encourage panelists, participants in this program to reach out to their ILCs in the area if they need advocacy help. Thank you.
Thank you. That was great. And in that last part there for the translation, what Makai is saying is that she sees it as a systemic problem, that Alvar gave the example of people challenging his request for higher education. Did I get that right?
Yes, that could be one area that is not uncommon, where the case manager may push back on that request.
Yes. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm looking here, we have Lisa Anderson, excuse me. Lisa Anderson. I'm going to bring you on. You have to unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so what kind of job what kind of job is it? So what is ACC?
AAC is augmentative and alternative communication. So for those individuals who do not have reliable use of their speech, for whatever reason, they can use high or low tech systems, even sign language is AAC. anytime you're not using your speech to communicate, it's technically AAC. So
Okay.
Alvar is typing, and Tim uses his typing.
So for people who have a speech impairment, for people who have a speech impairment, I guess they can use something like ACC translator.
Correct. Yes, you would get an assessment to determine what's the best system, because there's a whole lot of different ones out there. And you want to get an assessment so that the system accommodates your needs, whoever you are, and then put that in place and get some training on how to use it. Thank you for that question.
Okay.
Can we take a question in chat?
Is there a question
Can
in the
we
chat?
take a question in chat in the Spanish channel?
I don't think we have one.
Tim, they're troubleshooting interpretation for someone in the Spanish channel, not a question. Yeah.
Yeah, I asked that. Okay, Christiana, let's unmute you.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I have a very unique experience, which when I was applying for Disability Voices United, the person interviewing me, one of the people interviewing me was Tim. And so the tables were turned. And so it isn't always going to be that you're the one applying for the job. You may be the one being the employer. And Tim really was great about, one, he was very patient, and he had to explain to me, because he's really the first person that I've known who used an AAC device and would say, you know, you can keep talking. I can type while you're talking, which to me is just, I don't know how he does that. It's the most amazing thing. Like, I forget 2 seconds in, like, but and so I want you to know that this isn't necessarily a one-way street, that at some point you may be the boss and you may be the one who's hiring people. The other piece I did want to share was about Ticket to Work, which is part of the Social Security's administration. And that's one of the options that they have in order to help you keep your benefits, your SSI benefits, while you're working. And they have different providers, different types of providers that you can do, and DOR is one of them. But they do also have something called a WIPA, WIPA, which stands for Work Incentives Planning and Assistance. And they can help you with your benefits to show what your earnings, how they're going to impact your SSI and your Medi-Cal, and it's free, so it's something you can sign up for. So I just thought it's a good resource out there for you. So there are that, and I think there's 5 different parts to Ticket to Work that are worth looking at, and you know, protecting those benefits, which is really important. So that was it. I'll put the link down in the chat.
Thank you. Thank you. Excellent.
But I also have to say, of all the interviews I've ever had in my life, Tim was the hardest. He had the hardest questions. He was so.
Believe it.
Very good. Very good. I'm looking to see, are there any other questions specifically?
William asked a question in the chat that I am typing up a response to now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for catching that, Alvar. Excellent. Anybody else have an experience with an employer, for example, that you've had, good or bad? Lisa Anderson says you can still get Medi-Cal. You will have to fill out the form for each year. Oh, and then, yeah, it depends on if you qualify financially. Christiana is putting in the Social Security employment supports there for everybody to grab. Thank you. William's question, Alvar, you seem very independent. Oh, I got you. Keep going. I'm just going to put it out there to the group. seem very independent. Do you or did you ever need support staff at school or work? Did Tim come to work? I never asked him this. Did he come to work with support staff?
Yes, yeah, he did. He did. He had quite a few different ones, but um, they, every one of them were just amazing people, and that was really neat to meet them also. And they worked so well with Tim, and I think for the most part, they're
Not everyone.
not everyone. I know, Tim, not everyone. You had some pretty nice people working for you.
So how did that work out for staff, for your like your in-house teacher resource staff? How did they engage and understand the role of a support person? I never thought about that, because we do.
That one of the the kind of the accommodations that he did come with another person. They weren't necessarily here all day or anything, but for lunch and for breaks and stuff. It's, I think it was just I think kind of just working with them. Some were very open, some were very quiet. Mercedes, I know, was just an amazing gal, and she was. We always loved having her come. She just got together. She was like, just an extension of Tim, and he was. She got along with everybody. Everybody got along with her, and just loved the interaction between. And a lot of times, new people would come in and kind of were curious, and I think it was like an eye opener for a lot of them, where they'd never seen the interaction or what Tim's needs were and how somebody there for him. And it was I think it's just a great thing for people to see, and I think people felt like they learned a lot more by having.
Yeah. No, that's great. We hadn't thought about that. Thanks for that question, William. Alvar, are you ready?
The accommodate that I've.
Sorry, Alvar. Go, Tim.
One of the accommodate that I've asked at my interview. I asked my manager for an hour lunch because of my staff being late.
That's not fair.
That's true. It happened where he'd be waiting and waiting and waiting, and boy, Tim got a little hangry there for anytime that his staff was late. He did not appreciate them not being there when he was pretty set on times and stuff, and lunch was a big deal.
Well, those of us who know Tim know your pain.
Yeah.
How about you, Alvar?
I am pretty independent, William, though mainly out of necessity rather than because I do not require support. The school, I did a lot of online school, so my support was at home. When I had in-person school, I sometimes had support and other times had someone on calling case. When I have an in-person thing for work, I generally have a support person or a particular co-worker, or my manager helps. When I work from home, I don't have a support person most of the time.
When you're at home, you have a support person most of the time, or you don't have a support person all the time? Okay. Good to know. Someone is asking what time will we finish, and we will finish at 5:30. I also wanted to say that there's some audio breakup happening periodically, and that's a technical thing. Sorry if you're on the Spanish channel or the English channel. It doesn't seem like big chunks are missing, but little blips might be missing. I apologize. Any other questions out there?
I've got another one.
Yeah.
I just wanted to go back for a second because I've talked some to people about this in the past. People have mentioned this to me, but the issue that both Alvar you raised and then Yutal about the issue of, and I like the way that you put it, Alvar, in terms of almost like an accommodation for it, and that is the issue of eye contact. If that's a problem for you, like that, to me, that should be something that, the potential employer, the person who's giving you the interview needs to, I take away from you, Tal, let people know who you are, lay out all your issues. But if that's an issue, that seems to me, it needs to be up, like at least raised if that's going to be an issue for the interview process. At the same time, I heard you stress like that is an important thing. People like, and much of the world understands for a lot of the world that's important, but it's also a big issue. And, I do think it needs to be accommodated. But anyway, I just wanted to circle back around to that and get a sense of like, hopefully that isn't something that would count against somebody who's coming into an interview saying, that's an issue for me, I may not be able to look you right in the eye. And so hopefully at least from the employer end, that is recognized. That's a question and a hope.
Yeah. So it is, and I think a lot of people have it, whether they have a disability or not. It's not always the easiest thing to do, and and if you lay it out there that I really, it is very difficult for me to have that eye contact. I think it's very important to let your know that, and then they can kind of understand a little more, and it's not just something that you're not comfortable with or anything like that. It's a real issue.
I think from a communication specialist point of view, if you look at what eye contact is about communicatively, it's about engaging, right? So if you don't make eye contact well for your own reasons, think about how do you engage with the person, and maybe that's what you share. If I come by and touch your sleeve, that's me engaging, whatever the case may be, or just simple, I'm listening, even though it doesn't look like I am. However you engage, that's what you want to share, I think, because that's the purpose of the eye contact, is engagement. And yet everyone engages with people. It's just sometimes it looks different. And Alvar's creating here, so we'll wait for a second. Go ahead, Alvar, take your time.
My mind goes blank and I am not able to listen or form thoughts to communicate via AAC if I make eye contact. So I now preface any meetings with someone new with that information. I explain that I can listen better if I do not look them in the eye. I also try to use reflective listening when responding to questions so they understand I am listening and connecting with them.
Perfect. Carrie, you have something for us here. Let's have you unmute.
I've worked with a couple who adopted some disabled children, and my college friend told this couple about me, and they wanted to meet me, and thus they were hearing my learning ability. They wanted to hire me on the spot, and the employees really helped me with my needs.
Excellent. Carrie, can you do it one more time? Because I didn't catch the first part of your speech. Something you were working with the children and they wanted to hire you on the spot. Was that everything?
I've worked with a couple who adopted some disabled children, and my college friend told this couple about me, and they wanted to meet me, and thus they were hearing my learning ability. They wanted to hire me on the spot, and the employees really helped me with my needs.
So this was you're working with some adoptive children who had disabilities? And their foster parents or adoptive parents hired you on the spot? Excellent. That's a great success story. Beautiful. Okay, we are going to Tim, are you gonna say all this or am I? Yeah, okay. So first of all, I have to say huge thank you to Alvar and Tal. Again, this has been a great session. Nina is going to be talking about it for the week. But it really has. It's been, I loved this topic. I was so excited in anticipation for us to get to have this conversation. So thank you both so much for your time and your preparation and thoughtfulness. I think it's insightful and helpful. Thank you, Makai, for your availability to help out with any systemic changes that we might need. And William saying thank you, and a lot of thank yous are coming in on the chat. We're coming up on fall here. Next month, we are planning to have one of the vendors here. It's going to be a Share Your Wear week presentation. So we'll have one of the vendors come and talk about what they have on the horizon. And we can maybe share, we always see that as an opportunity to share with the vendors your needs so that, and they like that, so that they can create more and more for you all. So please join us next month on October, I can't remember. I always forget to look it up. It will 17th, right? October 17th. William probably knows and could tell me. October 17th. At 4 p.m. So sign in for that, please. Thank you, William. Also, then we get into November and December, and we hit, being the third week, we hit the holidays. So what we're doing is we're combining November and December into December 5th. So we will meet, just if you use your calendar and mark your calendar for these kinds of things, we will remind you. But the December or the winter session will be December 5th. Okay. Nothing in November. Okay. And then we won't have one at the end of December. We just thought that made more sense for everybody's life. And we will remind you, but we wanted to give you a heads up. The other thing is, I don't know, Christiana, are you still here?
Yes.
Do you want to real quick talk about SDP conference?
Yes, so we have the conference coming up for the self-determination program. It's going to be November 3rd. It's online. It's from 8:30 until I don't know what time, 4:30. And registration is open. If you're interested in registering, I'll put the link to the website and you can find the registration on there. We hope everybody will come join us. We look forward to seeing you there.
And is this something that Regional Center is funding registration for this year?
You can. So if you are currently a Regional Center client, you can ask the Regional Center to pay for it as a training. If you are a self-determination program client, you can, if you have a training on your spending plan, you can have your FMS pay for it, or you can pay for it yourself.
Perfect. And what kind of things might someone learn at this conference?
We were working on the breakout sessions today. I think it's going to be really exciting. We're going to have everything from employment. We're going to talk about spending plans and budgets and the future of self-determination and our hopes and dreams of where we want it to go. And so I think it's going to be a very exciting conference.
Now, last year we had sessions where self-advocates were presenting as well as professionals and family members, right? And will that be the case here as well?
Absolutely. In fact, we're going to have a session talking just about self-advocates and their programs and running their programs and the benefits to it and then the challenges to it as well. And having them be able to share with each other their experiences, which is, you know, such a great way to get ideas of things that you want to do.
Mm-hmm. So. Perfect. Thank you. Tim's got something. Hang on.
When I was working in the office, most of my coworkers would help me out from time to time with my various needs without any hesitation. That was my biggest concern when I started working with Tom on how others adapted with me. And it amazed me how my colleagues quickly realized that I was capable of doing a lot more and how fast my mind works. Thank you, Alvar and Tom. This was super helpful for everyone. And let's thank Ed, because it's her last day. Ed, you have the last word. Go, Ed.
You just put it in the chat.
Very, very in character of you to put me on the spot. Did not know you were going to do that. Folks, I really can't say anything other than thank you so much. I've worked with DVU for 4 years as of last August, and I've supported these virtual meetings for at least half of that time, and it's just been a joy to work with the team. It's been a joy to support all of you and the advocacy that you do. It's been an honor, actually, and I really look forward to watching what you all accomplish in the year to come. So.
And we want to say huge thank you to you, Ed. She's always in the background, you guys, attending, commenting in the background to us, what's happening here. Just on Johnny on the spot, you know, and
making these meetings work, the virtual meetings, the lifeblood. So thank you, Ed. I'm crying emoji.
And I think I got to say this too. So DVU kind of has a little bit of a reputation for being pretty professional in our technology Zoom meetings and for having a lot of things figured out. And it really is our programming team that Ed heads up as far as the technology goes, that does that for us. So you are appreciated and you will be missed.
Thank you guys so much. Right back at you.
Yeah. So we're going to sign off and see you all in October 17th, William says. Thank you. Thank you, Alvar. Thank you, Tal.
Thank you so much. Nice meeting you all.
Thank you.